we only handle. It's iabs.org. The gentleman who were supposed to present has not been able to make it for some technical issues. They just called to say this. So I'm going to move on to the next presentation. Louis, you are around, right? So I'm going to pull in Louis here. Yes. Thanks, my friend. You can come in, please.
Well,
please, yeah.
I'm sure
quick introduction about you. You are, I mean, you are a business consultant. I mean, education consultant. I would say higher education consultant from Texas, right? The rest is, of course, you can do self-introduction. That's just the time. Thank you so much for being here with us, Louis.
It is a privilege to be here, Dr. Raman, and my dear colleagues. I'm also a passionate of knowledge management, as probably most of you know, and I have been in higher education for 26 years now. So, and one of the things I have been transitioning is from on-campus education to online education, and then obviously first hybrid modalities. And then with COVID-19 pandemic, everything become more virtual. And the transition for those who did not make the transition originally was a little rough. And also universities realized that in addition to teach knowledge management, because it was important for businesses, they understood that they need to, in addition to be in compliance with the learning objective and try to complete what they are now teaching, they need to understand that they need faculty, not only, you know, PhDs or DBAs in business, but people who are able to understand the virtual platforms and to transfer the expertise, their knowledge to their students. So an accountant have to transfer his knowledge and experience in an accelerated modality online to an adult mostly who need to capture all the information and data and starting to get knowledge about how to perform in real life. So knowledge basically exists on the mind of the people in formal documents, databases, not only for business, now for universities who have starting to understand how to manage knowledge and to transfer that knowledge to the faculty, from the faculty to the students. So they can not only transfer that, but capture, store, and distribute that particular knowledge. So they can learn. So understanding that knowledge is basically the act of knowledge, or the ability to understand qualities and relationship of things, is our responsibility as professors to transfer what we know based on our experience in the field, being an expert in some discipline, because we acquired already that experience as a professional, as an expert in our field. So the question is, for the higher education institutions, how do I make that happen? Are the textbooks enough to transfer or to create knowledge in our students? How do I transmit to my student my experience in an accelerated program, 8 weeks, 7 weeks? Also, there are some universities who teach in a 4 weeks modality. How do I know, how I'm sure that the students learn or acquire the knowledge necessarily, not only to pass a class, but to fulfill their duties on their professional careers? So some basic concept, tacit knowledge to explicit as the title of this presentation. Tacit is in the mind of the people. It is unconscious. It's something that we execute sometimes in a mechanical way without realizing the content. Sometimes it's also very difficult to explain. So the explicit knowledge, which is what we need to get into and our student to get into it, is something that we know, that we are full aware how it works, how to execute it, and is easy to share because it's a structure and often schematized to facilitate its dissemination. I had a conversation with a client in Latin America recently, and he told me, very excited, I got a knowledge management model implemented in my classroom. See, excellent. Tell me more about this. And he showed me his computer lab with a big server in which he deposit, or it's a big repository of data. Well, how you transfer that? Well, I make this available for my students or for my professors if they need it. Well, that is not knowledge management. That is a repository of information which is not easy to disseminate, because if you have the need to get that information, but it's not shared with you in the moment you need it, to the right people to make decisions, it is not knowledge, it's simply data and information storage in a huge repository. So the challenge now is how to transfer knowledge and to construct competencies. In other words, how to make the students to understand what they need to do in their jobs, in their particular jobs, engineers, accountants, operation managers. You can mention it. They need knowledge, but they need competences in order to be efficient and effective as directors, managers, partners, whatever is their responsibility. So transfer and construction are not the same, because to be useful, the knowledge is not being stored, but it needs to be transferable to someone who can use it later. This transfer requires more than mastery of knowledge, because it's the integration of those competencies, it's the reflections, the decisions, and the actions related to the complexity of the situation that the student must face later in the company, on their work, or the real life environment eventually. So in the classroom, whatever it is on campus, or now with this boom of the virtual modality, it's important to understand that the construction of knowledge is important because it's a social interaction, is something that is based on the experience that need to be transferred to those who need it the most, which in this case are the students. Not only the part of theory, not only what is on the books, which is important. We need to comply with those learning outcomes. However, we need to create knowledge in order to the student to get competencies and become successful in what they do. So social interaction is what promotes teaching with students in the classroom. So, and what is needed? Externalization. The faculty, the professor, the expert need to make everybody understand what he does. It's a combination of what is on the books and the experience. Is the importance of the theory and the creation of competencies based on knowledge. And obviously the internalization in which the student create knowledge. They understand what had been transferred to him or to her. And then the socialization, which is the interaction between faculty and the student in a virtual environment. So that transfers happens when the faculty member transfers what he knows, his previous experience and knowledge to a learning problem solving. So the student not only have the know-how about how to do it, but will have the capabilities to solve a problem. Another definition is the ability to apply what has been learned given by a context or to new context. The transfer of knowledge, definitely, of course, when one applies previous experience and knowledge, in this case, the faculty, to learning and problem solving in a new situation. That is part of the learning process. Another possible definition is the ability to apply and to make that happen in a practical way. So the knowledge, the practical knowledge from the professor, from the faculty, from the teacher, had been transferred to his students. So, and then we have this virtual environment, educational material, but also didactic materials. And we need to implement both, knowing that textbooks, peer-reviewed journals, and instructional videos and support material are considered educational. It's mostly pedagogical support for the theory and the content, and also the practice. However, the didactic material are used to develop critical thinking on the students. It's analytics. It's helping them to complement by creating competencies from the learning outcomes, from the faculty experience and knowledge to part of the learning process that eventually he will use in their job. So what is then with this modality, virtual learning in higher educations? In this is the immersion of the students and the teachers or the faculty on a virtual environment. Later, it was important for the faculty to manage his classroom, to engage their students in a learning environment and the learning process. But now it's digital. Everything can be found in digital environments. We got virtual classroom, but we got virtual libraries. We got virtual magazines or journals. We got ebooks and everything that is available for the students easily and more fast. So we are using communication technologies in order to be more efficient as a professor in the classroom. Also, we are including more virtual and digital activities and collaborative work in the classrooms. And also, the use, as I mentioned before, of digital materials in digital formats like videos, like conferences like this one, like ebooks, like e-journals, in order to get access to knowledge. So in online education, teaching is linking what we need to know with the courses to become not only a professor, but a facilitator. In addition to the primary purpose or responsibility of manage a classroom or to teach, is to create what an environment like, as well as the physical environment of face-to-face education. We need to be more proactive. It is not easy being virtual. It requires more time for the professor. We need to be able to reply inquiries more often. It is not about being in a classroom and then disconnect from the classroom, the students. And so it is being several times of the day, getting into the virtual classroom, replying emails, getting into those discussion forums, grade them accordingly. It's not only being a teacher or a professor, it's being a facilitator of the knowledge creation. And obviously, keep what we are supposed to do as a teacher, as the literature in pedagogy or in pedagogy, as us to do as professors. In the social dimension, this in the online education, the classroom is a social space. It is important to create a link between the faculty, the students, and between the student, especially when they do collaborative work, which is something they will do eventually in their jobs. It's creating a healthy balance in that virtual classroom, keeping the faculty member, ensuring that all the students are progressing, are obviously acquiring knowledge, they are in compliance with the learning objective, and also as required by the curriculum objective, learning what they are supposed to learn. In the academic dimension, the professor needs to know the context, not only to answer the queries, but to transmit what they know, to be answered, to participate on debates in order to clarify concept, in order to clarify what the student need to be clarified, because that promotes the exchange of idea and obviously the construction of knowledge, this through a dialogue and the students' participation. In terms of the organizational dimensions, the faculty need to understand the didactic sequence of a course who was instructionally designed, got an SME working in content, then the instructional team put together those concepts into activities to get the student engaged and to promote the appropriate work rhythm. In terms of guiding, and this is basically the last I mentioned, is mentoring the student, guiding them through the learning process. It is sharing what is on the books, is sharing the theory, is sharing their experience. In other words, is building knowledge. In terms of the technical dimension, is to advise and guide. It is to manage learning. It is to carry out a specific administered tutorials if necessary, grading, all those required responsibilities and duties that we have as a faculty, and also contact the instructional team if they have any issues. So if you have any question, feel free